everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040, bringing to you another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And October 11th, 2004 marks 20 years ago that history was made when Edge turned heel and betrayed Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels, thus kicking off one of the greatest heel runs in the history of wrestling. And for today's special edition, I am going to be talking about the success and failures of Edge's heel run from October 2004 to July 2009. So, as everyone remembers, Edge returned during the draft lottery back in March 2004 on Raw, and Edge came back as a babyface and initially got off to a great start. Fans were happy to have him back and happy to see him in action once again after a year absence. But as time went along, Edge was still getting good reactions, but they were not as strong as when he first came back. They were starting to drop, and by July 2004, during a Intercontinental title match against Randy Orton, Edge was starting to get booed, while Randy Orton was getting quite a few cheers. But it wasn't until SummerSlam 2004 in Edge's hometown of Toronto, Canada, in a triple threat match against Chris Jericho and Batista, that Edge got completely booed out of the building. And even though he was successful in retaining his Intercontinental title, the fans just didn't care and they really weren't interested in Edge. So it was quite obvious that something had to change and had to change very quickly, because I noticed that Edge's character, although he was a babyface, he was a lot more vicious. He was playing a lot more rough in the ring. So it was clear that Edge was transitioning into something. Not necessarily a heel, but the Edge that we last saw back in February 2003 was very different to the Edge we were seeing nowadays. This Edge cared about one thing. He wanted to be World Heavyweight Champion. And you could clearly see the hunger in Edge's eyes. So, after having to forfeit his Intercontinental title in September 2004 before Unforgiven, Edge was out for a month and he would return the following month in October. But there was something very different about Edge. Gone was the happy go lucky, smiley wrestler who would always try to make the fans laugh and try to get them on his side. This Edge cared about himself and he wasn't looking to make friends. He was wanting one thing, as I mentioned, the World Heavyweight title. And the seeds were planted for Taboo Tuesday 2004, where he was put in the polling votes to challenge Triple H for the World Heavyweight title. It was either going to be Edge or Chris Benoit or Shawn Michaels. And Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels both came up with valid reasons for why they should challenge Triple H for the title. Edge didn't hold anything back. He cut straight to the chase and said, look, Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels, they've had title match after title match. They've been world champion. I have never been world champion. I have never had a title match. I deserve the opportunity, not those two. And while the fans weren't really warming up to Edge's reasons, I felt he made some very good points, because he did bring up a very good point. Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit had both been world champion, and we pretty much had seen the same matches all throughout 2004. And me personally, I felt Edge deserved a title match. I felt he was in that position where, you know what? I'd like to see Edge as champion. He's been here a long time, and he's more than earned it. As much as I love Benoit and HBK, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's time for something fresh. And I think by mid 2004, you know, fans were sick to death of Triple H holding onto the world title with an iron grip. It was time for something new, and Edge definitely fit the bill for that. So after losing to Shawn Michaels in the voting for Taboo Tuesday, Edge would be paired up with Chris Benoit to challenge for the tag team titles against La Resistance. And even though Benoit and Edge won the match, Edge walked out at the beginning of the match, leaving Benoit to fend for himself in a handicap match situation, but he was still able to win the tag team titles. So, fast forward to the title match, Triple H versus Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels has the match won. Edge comes in, spears Shawn Michaels, runs through the crowd, and screams, "It should have been me. It should have been me." Not trying to copy Dolph Ziggler, but that's what Edge said. It should have been me. And Edge pretty much cemented himself as a heel. I mean, he'd already turned heel just a few days earlier, but when he took out Shawn Michaels, that officially gave him a ton of heat. But he would get more heat later on in the following year. And I thought Edge was a good heel. You know, this was the change he really needed. But I felt he was nothing more than a Triple H clone. You know, it kind of reminded me of Triple H back in '99 when he was screaming down the mic that it's my time. I want my title shot. I want my world title match. All of you, screw you. It's all about me. That's how I felt with Edge. But as time would go on, he would shake off the Triple H wannabe tagline and really come into his own as a monster heel in his own right. So, all throughout the rest of 2004, we would see Edge feud with Jericho, Benoit, Randy Orton. He would reluctantly team up with Triple H and Batista and Snitsky at Survivor Series 2004. And you could really see that Edge was a lot more comfortable being a heel. And I think when you look back at his face run when he came back, which I did talk about a while ago, which I'm not going to lie, was a complete failure. And that's nothing against Edge. Edge did a great job. He was a good face, but you could clearly see that it just wasn't working. But when you look at the start of Edge's heel run, yeah, it was good, but it just kind of felt like he was copying Triple H. But when we get to 2005, to steal a quote from JR, business would really pick up. He would feud with Shawn Michaels. They would have a couple of excellent matches, especially their street fight that they had on Raw in February. They had a great match at Royal Rumble 2005. But when Edge won the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match, that was when Edge became a top heel. That was when he became, in my eyes, the rated R superstar. Even though that name wouldn't be coined until 2006, you could really see Edge was coming into his own as a heel, and he would walk around with that briefcase. You never know when he was going to cash in the Money in the Bank contract, and he was so good at teasing when he was going to cash in his opportunity, and Edge did a great job with that. Now, there was one moment in 2005 that to me cemented Edge as the most hated guy in the wrestling business, more so than Triple H. There was a situation in May 2005 where Lita turned on Kane and hooked up with Edge. And not since the days of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon during their run in the Attitude Era did we have a couple that was so hated and so despised, quite like Edge and Lita. And the heat that these two got from the fans was absolutely nuclear, near enough to the point of radioactive. And there was a very good reason for that. Unlike Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, who were portraying heel personas on television, just characters, Edge and Lita were hated for a different reason, a real life situation. Everybody knows this story. Lita and Matt Hardy were in a 6-year relationship, and Matt Hardy got injured in August 2004, and Lita cheated on Matt Hardy with Edge. And when these two got together officially on screen, the fans chanted very loudly, "You screwed Matt. You screwed Matt." And at the time, as a wrestling fan, I wasn't entirely sure what was going on. Obviously, I knew they were talking about Matt Hardy, but I couldn't quite understand, well, why would they be chanting "You screwed Matt"? They broke up on TV. Well, they did kind of get back together when they had the storyline situation with Kane, but I thought they were done. Little did I know, after hearing the whole story, that they were actually together in real life. So Edge was looked upon as a homewrecker and essentially ruined the relationship between Matt Hardy and Lita. Now, this situation we had here made Edge twice as hated. As I said, nuclear heat near enough to radioactive level. And Edge really came out of this as a real piece of crap, good and bad. Sometimes these things can work out to your advantage, and Edge definitely took advantage of this situation. And after the two matches he had with Matt Hardy on pay per view, one at SummerSlam and a steel cage match at Unforgiven, and a loser leaves Raw ladder match the following month in October. So that's essentially 3 matches. Edge really came out of this a bigger star than ever. Matt Hardy, unfortunately, all the momentum that he had was pretty much murdered, which is a shame, really, because I felt that two guys should have come out of this very strong. Matt Hardy, sorry to say, just came out of it very mediocre. He was pretty much in the mid card scene for life, while Edge just soared all the way to the top. And as a heel, no one could touch Edge. For me, Edge was probably the best heel we had since Triple H. He was unstoppable. And with Lita by his side, there was no one who could stop him. And it's a shame that Matt Hardy came out of this situation smelling like crap, because I think he deserved to be a big star. Matt Hardy was always in the shadow of Jeff Hardy. I think maybe he should have come out of this better, but it is what it is. One guy benefited the most out of this volatile situation, and that was, of course, Edge. And little did we all know that 2005, if that was the rise of Edge, 2006 was the year of Edge. So, fast forward to New Year's Revolution 2006, after a bloody Elimination Chamber where John Cena retained the WWE title, Edge came out and announced that he was cashing in his Money in the Bank contract right now. Edge would storm the ring, spear John Cena, pin him 1, 2, 3 in one of the biggest pops of all time, and made history to become the new WWE champion. After constantly getting screwed and robbed and being told that he would never ever win the world title. Edge shut up all of his harsh critics and buried all the naysayers and became the new WWE champion. And whether you love him or hate him, you cannot deny that Edge is one of the most hardworking guys in the company and literally broke his neck for the entertainment of the fans. And he deserved to be a world champion. And I felt for that moment, whether he was a heel or a face, Edge deserved to be a world champion. And I'm really glad that he got his due. And what a way to kick off 2006 for Edge. Unfortunately, Edge's WWE title reign would be cut short. He would only hold the title for 3 weeks before dropping it back to John Cena at the Royal Rumble 2006. But you can't deny that Edge made an impact as champion. Edge was the most watched champion in WWE history in the last 5 years since Stone Cold Steve Austin in his prime. That's a big statement to make. And Edge delivered great performances and great moments during that 3 week run. He had an excellent TLC match against Ric Flair, which was one of Flair's greatest matches at the twilight of his career. He had a very highly entertaining and controversial segment in a live sex celebration with Lita. But there was no denying that Edge was the man. Now, the reasons for why Edge became a transitional champion and was forced to drop the title back to Cena was highly questionable. I felt that Edge should have walked into WrestleMania 22 as the champion, but I'm afraid it wasn't meant to be. But there was no stopping Edge in 2006. Edge was on fire. He would, however, make history at WrestleMania 22 in a different way. He would have one of the greatest hardcore matches against Mick Foley, and he would defeat him after spearing Mick Foley through a flaming table. My God. In one of the greatest performances of his career. And just like Mick Foley helped put Randy Orton on the map back in 2004 at Backlash, Mick Foley did the exact same thing for Edge in 2006. Edge really came out of that match hotter than ever, literally and figuratively. And Edge would still get title matches, but he would come up short. But he would finally get his title back when he defeated Rob Van Dam and Cena in a triple threat match on Raw in July 2006, and John Cena and Edge would reignite their feud, leading to another match at SummerSlam 2006, where Edge would retain the WWE title, and then they would go on to have an excellent TLC match at Unforgiven in Edge's hometown of Toronto, Canada, where Edge would lose the WWE title to John Cena. And this would kind of put Edge out of the title picture for a little while. He would go on to have one more title match against Cena in a steel cage match, and he would get screwed by DX. And this would lead to the formation of Rated RKO with Randy Orton. But I'm not going to be talking about the Rated RKO run for this edition. I'll be covering the success and failures of that team in another edition for another time, which is purely concentrating on Edge's heel run. But what I will say about the Rated RKO run with Randy Orton Edge came out of that looking like a real heel. Both of them did, really, but Orton was already well established as a hated heel, but I felt with Edge, he really came out of that better than Randy Orton. Both guys did benefit greatly, don't get me wrong, but I feel that with Edge, I think he got more out of it than Randy Orton, in my opinion. So we fast forward to May 2007 after Edge screwed Mr. Kennedy and defeated him to obtain his Money in the Bank briefcase. Edge would jump to SmackDown and cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase on The Undertaker and pinned him to win the World Heavyweight title, thus cementing him as the biggest heel on SmackDown. And by this point, Edge was unstoppable. Don't get me wrong, Edge had a great run on Raw as the rated R superstar, but at the same time, he kind of took a back seat to Triple H and John Cena. I felt when he jumped to SmackDown and became the World Heavyweight Champion, he was the man. He ruled SmackDown. And there was no question that he was the top guy, as he should be, and he deserved to be. And SmackDown, I always looked at SmackDown as obviously I've always preferred SmackDown, but I just felt that Edge really came into his own as the top heel of the Blue brand. He was a top heel on Raw, but I felt on SmackDown he was the top heel. So he would go on to feud with Batista for most of 2007, and he would forfeit the title due to an injury, and he would return at Survivor Series 2007 and lay out The Undertaker with a video camera, and this would set up a great feud between The Undertaker and Edge for all of 2008. So after The Undertaker won a number one contenders match inside the Elimination Chamber against five other opponents, Edge and Undertaker would have one of the best feuds of 2008 and have five excellent pay per view matches. While Undertaker did defeat Edge for the world title, there was no stopping Edge. He was still very hated, still the top heel, and now with SmackDown General Manager Vicky Guerrero by his side, Edge was a bigger heel than he ever was. He was a big heel with Lita, don't get me wrong, but I felt with Vicky Guerrero, who was like an authoritative figure, Edge was untouchable. And, he would win back the world title at One Night Stand in a TLC match, which would result in The Undertaker getting fired. Edge was pretty much the man. There was nobody who could stop him. And to show you how good the feud between The Undertaker and Edge was, they produced five pay per view matches. Now, usually when you have a feud that lasts five pay per views, that's including five matches. The first match is always the best one. The second one is usually very good. The third one is all right. And the fourth and the fifth, you tend to lose interest and you lose a lot of steam. Those five matches, obviously, there are a couple that were better than others, but to produce five great matches back to back and to keep that interest with the fans for that period of time is a true testament to how good not just The Undertaker, but Edge in particular. He was such a good heel. He was a perfect foil for guys like Batista and specifically The Undertaker. And, every time Edge would win, he would just run away, and fans would be like, I can't believe it. Edge got away with it again. I can't wait for The Undertaker to get his hands on him next time they go at it. That's how good Edge really was as a heel. So Edge would lose the world title to Batista at Night of Champions, and as punishment, SmackDown general manager Vicky Guerrero would book Edge in a Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam 2008 against a newly reinstated Undertaker in one of the best Hell in a Cell matches, in my opinion, and easily the best match of the entire pay per view. And Edge would lose to the Undertaker, and Undertaker would chokeslam Edge through the ring, setting it on fire as his way of saying that he sent Edge straight to hell. And for me, this Hell in a Cell match was the perfect way to conclude what was an epic feud between Edge and The Undertaker. Edge would return in November at Survivor Series 2008, where he would win the WWE title after pinning Triple H in a triple threat match after taking out Jeff Hardy. And Edge would debut a brand new look, which was this great big, humongous beard, and he was back on top once again. And he would go on to drop the WWE title to Jeff Hardy at Armageddon 2008. He would win it back at Royal Rumble 2009, and then he would drop it back in February at the Elimination Chamber, and then he would win the world title again later in the show in the Raw Elimination Chamber, and then he would lose it back to Cena at WrestleMania 25. My God. Edge was going back and forth with world titles, so he would drop the title on SmackDown, then jump back to Raw, win the title there, and then he'll just keep doing that all the time. And that just shows you what a sneaky heel Edge really was. Edge would go on to regain the world title after defeating John Cena at Backlash in a last man standing match. He would successfully retain the title against Jeff Hardy at Judgment Day, and then he would drop the title to Jeff Hardy at Extreme Rules. And then, after finally breaking up with general manager Vicky Guerrero and divorcing, he would also get a rematch for the world title in a triple threat match against Jeff Hardy and CM Punk, but CM Punk would pin him. And then after that, he would go on to team up with Chris Jericho as they would win the unified tag team titles at the Bash in 2009. But unfortunately, this would pretty much mark the end of Edge's heel run as he would tear his Achilles tendon and he would be out of action for several months. And this would lead to Chris Jericho recruiting another tag team partner in Edge's place, who would turn out to be none other than The Big Show. So, in terms of the success and failures of Edge's heel run from 2004 to 2009, I would say this was a complete success. I think after the failure of his babyface run from when he returned in March 2004, I think turning heel was the best thing that's ever happened, not just for Edge's character, but his entire career. It completely freshened him up and gave him something new to get his teeth into, and he just got to work with lots of great different opponents, and he put out some of his best work ever. You know, as much as I enjoyed Edge as a face, for me, Edge works so much better as a heel, and for me, that's where it's at because he's such a natural bad guy, and he's got that look to him. You know, the evil grin, the long hair, you know, there's nobody who could generate heat quite like Edge. And, you know, Edge is one of the top heels of all time. You know, as far as the Ruthless Aggression era is concerned, Edge was the best. He was hands down the best heel of that era. Triple H was definitely up there, but we've seen it all before, but Edge, it was something completely new. He completely transformed his whole character. He was no longer Mr. Nice Guy, trying to be nice to the fans. He pretty much stuck his middle finger at the fans and say, "Screw you! It's all about me. I'm the man. I'm going to get what I want, and I don't care how I get it, as long as I do. If that means I've got to steal your girlfriend or hook up with the boss to do what I've got to do to get to the top, I will do that." And the thing about Edge, what I loved about his heel run, is he didn't hide the fact he was a piece of crap. He was proud that you knew he was a piece of crap. He would gladly tell you, "Yeah, I'm a piece of crap. I stole your girlfriend. What are you going to do about it?" And the way he used to bury the fans, Edge was the master. In terms of failures, there wasn't really many failures, but obviously there were a couple which weren't his fault, obviously. I felt that his title reigns were too short. I really felt that his first WWE title run should have been longer. He should have at least walked into WrestleMania 22, at least, but he didn't. So that was a bit of a bummer. And going back and forth, winning titles all the time, on one side, it did help him build up credibility as a heel, but at the same time, it was just like, oh, God, too much winning, losing the title. It just got a bit too much for me. But I wouldn't really call that failures. It was still good, but there wasn't really many that I could think of. Just maybe the title reigns could have done with being a little bit longer. But whenever Edge came out, you knew something big was going to happen, and he was always good at getting people's attention, whether that was screwing someone out of the world title, whether that was cashing in his Money in the Bank contract, or stealing someone's girlfriend. Edge knew how to stir the pot. He knew how to create a buzz. He knew how to create controversy. And one thing Edge was very good at was getting people to take notice and getting everyone talking. Edge was definitely the master of that. So I would say Edge's heel run from 2004 to 2009 was excellent. And for me, his best work ever. I would say the best year of Edge's heel run, hands down, 2006. He was excellent. 2007 was great as well, but I think 2006 was just maybe a little bit better. He had some excellent matches. He was so hated. And I loved all of it. I think all of his run was great, but I think 2006 really stood out to me as his best year ever. Nobody could touch him. I just think he was an amazing heel. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your favourite feud from Edge's heel run in 2004 to 2009? Was it against Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley, Ric Flair, John Cena, Triple H, or Matt Hardy, Batista, or The Undertaker? What was your favourite moments from Edge's 2004 to 2009 heel run? Was it when Edge speared Shawn Michaels at Taboo Tuesday 2004, or Edge's first WWE title victory at New Year's Revolution 2006, or Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank contract against The Undertaker, or Edge's Money in the Bank victory at WrestleMania 21, or Edge and Lita's live sex celebration on Raw, or Edge hooking up with Lita on television, or Edge returning at Survivor Series 2007. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.